Okay.
Hello, good evening, and welcome to this is our inaugural show of Let's Talk, etc. My name is Greg Morgan. I'm your host, and we're going to talk tonight about it's going to be kind of a tech talk, and we're going to talk about the I/O for Google, the 2016, and also get into a little bit of conversation about the upcoming WWDC 16, which is the Worldwide Developers Conference for Apple. And the person who's going to really try to give us a little insight in both venues is going to be the movie maven, also our tech maven, Miss Karen D. How you doing, Karen?
I'm doing great, Greg. How are you?
I am doing really good, really good. Excited about all the new things that are happening in the world of technology, especially with regard to Google and Apple. You know, we've always heard about a lot of the things that are going on with both platforms, and especially because of all of us, majority of us out there who have smartphones, have to deal with a lot of the different networks and nuances that both these companies bring to the fold. So it's really exciting times again, because every year it seems like it's exciting times with all the new things that are happening.
Right.
Now we're talking about different operating systems changes. We're talking about, for example, in Google, we're talking about being able to talk to our phone and be able to get more information from our phone and have it do so many more things in this new launch of the I/O was mentioned in that launch conversation last few weeks ago, and now the upcoming developers conference in Apple. So why don't you give us kind of an overview of what you thought was the general essence of what was going on in Google's I/O conference and what you got out of it that you think are the particulars that are the best things that were launched this year or will be launched this coming year?
Okay. Well, first, let me just start out by saying a little bit more about what it is. Google I/O is a conference for developers, developers that work on Android products and developers that work on the Chrome operating system, which is used to power Google Chromebooks. Mm-hmm. So every year, Google has a conference for the developers to sort of inspire them to create new products. And Apple does the same thing every year with its conference called the WWDC, which stands for Worldwide Developers Conference. Mm-hmm. So the Google conference was held in the middle of May this year, and Apple's Worldwide Developers Conference will actually begin this coming Monday. Okay. And over the next 2 or 3 days, they will focus on all things Apple. And in both conferences, you see like the main the heads of these operating systems and the heads of the corporations. This is a big deal for them. It takes weeks of preparation, and they come out and they do these presentations, and the conferences are broadcast to millions of people all over the world. They're usually live streamed. With Google, it's live streamed on YouTube. With Apple, it is live streamed usually through Safari and through like an iPad or a MacBook or some sort of Apple product. So that's where we are. And I guess there's always been some sort of competition between Google and Apple. These are huge corporations. Apple used to be headed by Steve Jobs before he passed away in 2011. And Steve Jobs made Apple just mega famous because of the innovations that Apple made in personal computing when he ran the corporation. Google started out as a search engine, really, founded by Sergey Brin and Larry, and I can't remember, I just lost his last name. But anyway, Page. I'm sorry, Larry Page, founded by Sergey Brin and Larry Page. They were graduate students at Stanford, and they invented a new way of doing search and compiling information for search. And from that, Google was born. And since then, I mean, we've come a long way. We have, like you said, we have smartphones, we have laptops, we have tablets, we have wearables. You know, I mean, I'm wearing a Microsoft Band 2 right now, and I've had Fitbits and Garmin's and all that. So we've gone from like in the 70s having like huge rooms of huge computers that needed like their own rooms to cool them, right, to computers like this, which are probably more powerful than those computers that were in all of those rooms 50 years ago.
Yeah,
isn't that amazing?
That is crazy.
It is crazy. It's totally crazy. And certainly smartphones. I mean, this is my smartphone. It's an HTC 110, and the computing power in this far exceeds what most computers had. And the same thing with your, I think you have a Samsung, right?
No, I've actually got a Moto 6.
Oh, okay. Well, same thing with that.
Right. And yeah, I used to work for the phone company years ago, and those mainframe computers, I've been in those rooms, and like you said, they're pretty frosty. And but it's just a crazy thing to see something that took up rooms. We're talking about rooms, and have that same capability in the palm of your hand. I mean, that's crazy.
It is crazy. It's really one of the miracles of our time, and it's not, in my personal opinion, I don't think we give enough credit to the actual existence of this miracle. We spend a lot of time saying, my computer's slow. I wish, why can't I find, I'm talking to Google Now, and Google Now's not answering me, and Siri won't acknowledge me, and I just don't understand why I can't get what I want when I want it. And the fact that we can talk to these little things is pretty amazing. It really is. So anyway, these conferences, the WWDC and the NIO, are, like I said, designed to focus on the developers. And Google's conference, some people say got a little off track a few years ago because they would hand out these what's called swag, or just, goodies, to the people who attended. And the goodies were so terrific that almost became more important than the conference itself. And people were clamoring to get to the conference so that they could get the goodies. Like at one point, they gave away Chromebooks, or they gave away the top Samsung phones, or things like that, things that weren't readily available and were very expensive. And, it's expensive to go to these conferences. They're not at all cheap. I mean, I think Google's cost almost $1,000 to attend. And it's only 2 days. It's only 2 or 3 days. And Apple is similar. When these prizes or goodies were being given away, people who weren't developers were clamoring to get to the conference so that they could get this stuff. So since then, Google has sort of pared that focus down and gotten back to really talking to developers about what they're doing and how they can create more things to enhance the overall Google experience. And I think Apple is doing the same thing. So you asked me what Google did, and there were a number of things that came out of the Google I/O for this year. Although in terms of like wow things, some people have said that there weren't quite as many wow things at this conference as there have been at previous conferences. But I always find that the things that they come up with, or the things that are announced at Google I/O, are quite significant, even if there isn't like some like gotcha that you can point to immediately. You know that they're setting the groundwork for some really amazing things to happen that can happen down the road. So one of the announcements at Google I/O was Android N. Now, Android is the operating system for the phones. Like I said, I've had a Google phone for 6 years, ever since 2010. And I have an HTC 10, like I said, and it runs what's called Marshmallow. Android operating systems are named after desserts. That's the convention. So beginning with Cupcake, we're now up to N. We don't have a name for N yet. And at the conference, Sundar Pichai, who is the CEO of runs Android. He's not the CEO of Google, but he runs Android and Chrome and the Chrome OS system. Famously threw it out to the world and said, "Help us name the next version of Android." I guess it's going to be a dessert. Could be Nutella, could be nougatine, it could be Nutty Buddy. I don't know what it's going to be, but it's supposed to be announced at some point. What's going to be in Android, in the next version of Android? One of the things that was announced is something that will be actually pretty intriguing. Something called picture-in-picture mode, and I like I said, I think that'll be pretty intriguing. I mean, you'll have an image on your phone, and you'll be able to call up another image on the phone, another picture within that picture, and interact with that picture, that information, while you've got another program open. And that is not something we can do right now. I mean, right now, if I open up a program, I can work on that program, and if I want to go to another program, I need to open up another program to do that. Right. And that other program recedes into the background. So this is sort of multitasking taken to the next level. So it will be interesting to see that come about. Another feature of Android N will be something called split screen, which is another way to multitask. And that's something that Samsung has made, is sort of made some forays into, where you can, and Microsoft as well, you can split the screen in two and have two programs open at the same time and work on them. New emoji, I don't know how important that is, but people care about emoji. And there was somewhat of a controversy just because people felt that emoji were not racially diverse enough. There wasn't enough gender diversity. There weren't enough representations of careers in emoji. So that's all going to change with Android N. And another feature for Android N is notifications, more control over notifications, like on an application by application basis. Right now, when you call up notifications on your phone, with Marshmallow, you can dictate which applications show up. But in terms of how in terms of, and I'm sorry, you can dictate which applications have access to your notification screen. And I don't know if you can see that, but that's an example of the notification screen. So you can dictate which applications have access to that, but in terms of how they have that access, you have much more limited control. Like if you want a particular type of alarm with a notification, or a particular type of sound, you're not necessarily able to dictate that. Or if you only want an app to notify you about specific events only at certain times, you can't do that. It's either in your notification shade or it's not. So with Android N, there will be some innovations in terms of creating much more end user control over how and when specific applications access that notification shade. And that is extremely valuable real estate. I don't know if you recall, several years ago, there was a huge controversy about some applications getting access to the notification screen, and because of ads that were attached to those notifications, the ads also got access to the notification screen. And I know I had an application on my phone at one point in time. It was a news feed application. Okay. And I wanted to know, and it had to do with Android. So I wanted to know when there were news stories about Android, but this particular app also gave permission to its ad partners to access my notification screen. And I was like, no, you don't. I don't want that on my notification screen. I don't want ads. That's my space. That's not your space. You cannot co-opt my notification screen. So people, or not people, but developers, app creators, advertising companies would love to get a hold of that. But it's sort of sacred space. And I know for my part, that particular application, when I figured out which application was doing that, I eliminated it from my phone. And there were a number of applications that came out to like notify you if something that you didn't want got access to your notification screen. So I think, I bring that up mainly because there's a war right now over ads, and that wasn't something that was specifically addressed in Google I/O, but it's something that is going to become, I think, a big deal. Mobile ads have stopped being quite as lucrative as they used to be. People sort of tuned them out, and there's been a real increase in the use of ad blockers. And ad blockers have gotten better at actually blocking ads. Sometimes ad blockers weren't that good at blocking ads, especially a few years ago, but now they're pretty good at blocking ads. So I think there's going to be a real sort of push on the parts of people who sell things and people who sponsor ads and apps, and to find ways to kind of get their way into these spaces that have now been held apart from ads, like notification screen, and just within ads in general. So that's something I would look for, even though that wasn't specifically discussed at Google I/O. That's kind of an aside, but I would just throw that out there.
I have a question. Something that I thought was kind of interesting, and something that I kind of utilize the current ability anyway. When you're on your Google phone and you tap the microphone and you're asking questions and getting certain answers from the computer or from from Google, I know they were talking about, at least my understanding was, they were talking about Google Assistant. Do you know anything about that and what those parameters are, and how it's actually going to innovate what's already currently our tap and speak on our phone?
Well, that is very interesting, and that probably is one of the big sort of big things that came out of Google I/O this year. Although it's kind of interesting, in my opinion, the announcements relating to Google Assistant weren't in and of themselves necessarily so big. It's just, but if you compare where Google's at compared to Microsoft and Apple in that particular space, that's where the battle is. And I think Google is relatively far ahead of Apple and Microsoft with regards to the development of language recognition software and the development of things like Google Assistant. So they announced this enhancements to Google Assistant, and the idea is for it to understand language even more than it does. The big battle is over context. So that when you say, hey, Google, I would like to know the temperature, and then you expect Google to answer. You expect Google now to say, the temperature in Indianapolis, Indiana, or wherever you're at is 35 degrees or 50 degrees or whatever it is. And you didn't say to Google, what is the temperature in my location? And I'm in Indianapolis, Indiana, so please tell me the location for that spot. Mm-hmm. You didn't say all that. You said, hey, Google, what's the temperature?
So you're saying it's going to become more intuitive.
Right. Well, yeah, more contextual awareness is really what I'm talking about, because you're not saying all that. You expect Google to figure out, okay, this person is located in Indianapolis, Indiana at this particular time, and let me go grab the weather, and here's the weather, and let me speak it to him. So that's all that figuring out that Google's doing kind of at the back end. Or if you say something like, hey, Google, what's the best hotel to stay at in Disney World? And then Google says, the best hotel is whatever it is. And then you say, well, who's going to be playing there? And you expect Google to understand that you're talking about, by playing, you expect Google to understand that you're talking about an entertainer who's going to be giving a performance. And there is what you were just referring to. Mm-hmm. So Google's made quite a few strides in terms of that, because right now you can have that sort of interaction with Google where you say, what's the temperature in Miami, Florida? What kind of trees grow there? Or are there any bodies of water there, or something like that? You expect Google should be able to address that. The other enhancements relate to speed, more quickly understanding and turning around results to you. Okay. And so those are the things that I think we will be looking for. Now, the other thing that they mentioned was the announcement of Google Home. And Google Home will be a competitor to Amazon's Alexa. And have you heard of that?
Yes.
Okay. So it's like Amazon Echo, it's referred to as Alexa. But anyway, Amazon Echo is like a personal assistant. It looks like a black tube. It has speakers or whatever. And you can say, hey, whatever the name is, I don't want to call it out, but the Amazon Echo, you can address Amazon Echo and ask it to tell you the weather and your schedule and recipes and all kinds of stuff. Google has announced its own competitor to that called Google Home. Mm-hmm. And Google Assistant will be very much a part of that. So Google Home, it's not shaped at all the way that Amazon's Echo is. It's much shorter, and it looks more like a little lava lamp almost, kind of.
Yeah, I saw the prototype that they have, and it's kind of fits in your hand pretty easily. And,
exactly.
Looks kind of unassuming. I think that's the whole purpose, to be unassuming in your house. Away like
it blends in to the decor a bit. It sort of blends.
It also comes in different colors too.
Well, that's true. That's true. So yeah, and Google Assistant will be very much a part of that, along with something else called Chromecast. I think is also going to be embedded in that. And Chromecast is Google's interface that allows you to, let's see, what's a good way to put that?
Broadcast.
Yes, you can. It's an alternative way to broadcast media. So you're either your own media. I
was going to say it's one of my best friends.
Oh, me too.
I use it quite religiously.
I have 3 of them.
I only have one, but I'm surprised it hasn't burned up already. I use it quite a bit.
I'm using it right now. So, I mean, I use. It's funny. Like with like there's smart TVs now, and like I have a Samsung TV, which is a smart TV, which means it has applications, right? Mm-hmm. But I find Samsung's applications to be very clunky and hard to use. And a lot of times, even if I have a good Wi-Fi connection, sometimes the application won't work or it'll be slow. And so I've just stopped using those so-called smart applications. Mm-hmm. And I just use Chromecast, and I access Hulu and Netflix and anything else that I want to access through Chromecast. It's much easier, and I have far fewer problems doing it that way.
Yeah, I've become very much a proponent of YouTube, which is another Google product. And I broadcast from my phone to the screen of my television. And I'm able to look at those things a little easier, and I find it to be a lot more fun as opposed to trying to look at my phone. That's not that my phone's interface it's a good size, but I find it to be a little bit more appealing visually on the big screen of the television, which is kind of I guess it's kind of it's not totally a smart television. It's kind of okay. I won't say smart, but slightly educated television.
Right.
So I'm able to utilize the Chromecast to enhance its features, and I really enjoy that.
Yeah, I remember when Chromecast was announced. I was watching the announcement, and I said to myself, "This is a major game changer," and it's like it really kind of snuck in under the radar. But I'm like, for $35, this is going to do that. This is amazing, and I just bought one immediately. Mm-hmm. I couldn't wait to get my hands on it. So anyway, that's going to be part of Google Home. Rumor has it. Mm-hmm. We don't know yet. We don't know what a price point is for Google Home or exactly when it'll come out, but probably sometime this year.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that because I'm a very visual person, and so if that is going to enhance that and also be able to almost give my Google Home orders as to things I'm looking to do, things I want to do, how it controls other things that are smart applications within the home front. That's what looks exciting to me. And I'm looking forward to that. So I'm hoping that information comes out soon. Well, I guess we're talking a lot at Google. What else have you got for us?
Well, I was just gonna say that in terms of the Google Home, I remember reading an article about the Google Home announcement, and I mean, I could probably go ahead and get like the Amazon Echo right now. I haven't really been particularly motivated to go out and get the Amazon Echo, even though it sounds like it does a lot of neat things, because and from a search standpoint, I'm not that embedded in the Amazon ecosystem. I mean, I buy my books through Amazon, and I will get packages through Amazon, but I don't do, I don't run a calendar through Amazon. I don't do search through Amazon or any of that. So I wasn't that motivated to go get an Amazon Echo. But when Google Home was announced, I thought, I can't wait to find out what the price point of this is, because if it's affordable, I think I might want a Google Home. I think I might want a Google Home in my home, because I'm already so much a part of the Google ecosystem.
Right.
It already has my calendar. It already has other information about me, where, my locations that I frequent and things like that. So a Google Home Assistant would be really useful to me, far more than an Amazon would, I think.
That does make a difference. I think what people utilize makes the difference. I'm an Android guy. I'm a Google guy, just like you're alluding to. And, but, we have people and friends, acquaintances who are very inundated into Apple. And so they're, of course, looking forward to the WWDC coming up this month, in a few days, right?
Right. So, Monday, Monday.
Yeah. So with that being said, why don't we talk about that a little bit? What is it about that platform that launch that they're talking about sounds exciting? I know one of the things that was mentioned is the physicality of even the phones is changing, not being necessarily these plastic or metallic plastic metallic physical phones, but actually phones that are all glass is one of the things that was mentioned, and making it easier for developers to facilitate their applications that they're working on, making it much more not just efficient, but capable. What do you think about all the things that they're talking about on the Apple side?
Well, yeah, that's a good question. Here, the first thing I would say is that Apple is famous, notoriously so, for keeping what they're actually going to announce at their conference secret from everybody. Okay. So there are rumors flying around all over the place, and I took notes on a whole list of things. They're all rumors, and maybe some of it will come true, or maybe none of it will come true. That being said, Apple is not quite as good as it used to be about keeping things secret, because it's just too far. Things are just too far out there, and their partners are too far flung, and they can't control everything as quite as well as they used to. So in terms of things that have been talked about, I don't expect to see any hardware at all. The iPhones are traditionally announced in the fall, new iPhones. So the iPhone 7 will be, if there's going to be an iPhone 7, which I assume there will be, that will likely be announced in September or October of this year. So with the focus on software, I think one thing we might be looking at, we were just talking about Google Now and Amazon Echo. Well, Siri, what's going on with Siri? Because frankly, in my opinion, Siri's started to look it's kind of dragging her butt a little bit in comparison to, especially in comparison to Amazon, but and definitely in comparison to Google. For one thing, I mean, Siri operates within the Apple ecosystem, and that's it. Whereas if I have an Apple phone, I could do a Google Now search, and I can do a voice search. I could do get Google Now. I might not have Google Now on tap, which is part of Android Marshmallow, but I can certainly do a voice search using Google as my search engine. But I can't get Siri on my Android phone, and frankly, I don't want Siri on my Android phone, but that's neither here nor there. But Siri just tends to be somewhat limited in terms of this contextual understanding that I was talking about before. What is, what can I make for dinner? What is it, should I use tomatoes in the pizza recipe? What do they cost? How many of them should I use? Doing that is more problematic when you're using pronouns like them and it, and, are more problematic, I think, with Siri far more than they are with Google Now, and probably even with Amazon Echo. And I think Apple's probably, the rumors are that Apple's going to be announcing enhancements to Siri to make it much more contextually aware, to make it produce search results much faster, and also to make it more reliable, because there are times when people say, hey, Siri, and Siri's like, well, I don't know. And yes, Siri can come up with snarky answers from time to time, but there are other times when you just want an answer and it's like, Siri's like, oh I don't know. I think Apple's going to be looking to change that. And the chase is on, because I think Apple's also going to, at some point in the fall, if not at this conference, they're going to have to produce their own competitor to Google Home and Amazon Echo, or they're in danger of losing some market share. Here's the place where Apple is right now, in my opinion. Their profit margin leader is the iPhone. But even Tim Cook acknowledges that unless they can crack China, the growth in iPhone is it's going to become less and less over time, not because it's any less popular, but simply because they've sold it to everybody that can buy it. All the people who want an iPhone in the United States have pretty much got an iPhone. And until it's time to get a new iPhone, they don't need another iPhone. So the margin of people, new users of iPhone, is getting smaller and smaller over time. They've cracked the US market, they've cracked Europe. The next big market to crack is China, and China's relatively locked down right now. So with that, they have to look for new ways to expand their reach. Mm-hmm. And assistant search, contextually aware search, and moving into artificial intelligence, artificial reality, and virtual reality, that's the next horizon. And if your search engine doesn't do that well in that regard, and I think part of the problem is that it's a walled garden. I think Siri could get a lot smarter if Siri was out more, working on more platforms, but since it doesn't, I think it's somewhat limited. Because it is in a walled garden, and neither Cortana, Microsoft's assistant, or Google Now, neither one of those are in walled gardens. But anyway, Apple really has to look at how to make its own mark, or they are going to end up losing market share. So that's a very big challenge for them, and they've got to address it, I think, at this WWDC.
Do you think they're going to do anything with the rumors about trying to make a lot more, make their apps a lot more compatible with Android apps as well?
Interesting, you should say that. There have been some rumors along those lines. Now, one rumor, not terribly substantiated, is that Apple might actually announce an iMessage application for Android. Now, if they did, that would be the shot heard around the world, because here's where Google falters. This is an area, in my opinion, where Google falters a lot, and that's with messaging. You would think Google could nail it. They can't nail it. They're terrible with messaging. I don't know why. It's not that advanced. Apple, on the other hand, has messaging wrapped up with a ribbon, and it sings songs, and it's practically the Vienna Boys Choir. It is so awesome. But their messaging solution only works within Apple, and it's called iMessage. So if you have an iPhone and I have an iPhone, we can send each other messages through iMessage, and it works very well. Now you can, I think, send messages to other people with iMessage if they have Android, but it's the whole green bubble versus blue bubble battle. And if you're iMessage on Apple, you're a blue bubble. But if you're iMessage on Android, I mean, if you're sending iMessage to somebody who's not an Apple user, then they're a green bubble, and the experience is just not that great. So there have been rumors along that line. And another area where I think Apple's also, I think, trailing behind Google, but also other third-party applications, is in the music area. I don't think the Apple Music platform is nearly as robust, in my opinion, as Google All Access, and it certainly isn't as robust as Spotify. And their announcements last year of like a curated music station, radio station, with DJs from different points of the world. Yeah, okay. I didn't understand why that was so amazing, because if I want a DJ, I can just go to TuneIn Radio and find a DJ. I can get a DJ from all over the world whenever I want. So I didn't understand what that was, and the curation angle to me wasn't that persuasive. But right now, one of the things that may come out of WWDC is a way to expand the amount of curated music for Beats Radio, and to enhance social connectivity with Apple Music, so that you can discover music more quickly. Like supposedly the Beats curated radio station was supposed to be a way to discover music, but I don't think it's really worked out that way. And frankly, I don't think radio is necessarily that great a way to discover music. There are good ways to discover music. I think radio used to be a way to discover music. These days, I just don't think people are discovering music because they're listening to the radio. They're discovering new music because they...
Yeah, there's too many media platforms out there to Pandora, Spotify. I mean, we could go on and on and on of how to facilitate and obtain new music, not just any music, but new music, and listen to new groups and D-Days and all that. One of the problems I used to have with Apple was iTunes. iTunes was facilitated initially so that you would use Apple products and Apple Music, and you can only put it on an Apple phone. Whereas Android broadened the picture, so you can get music from all these different things all over the place with Android capability. And so, it could be a WAV file, it could be a MP3, I mean, on and on and on, where it's just MP4 pretty much on the Apple side, and it's hard to convert. They made it difficult to convert, whereas all these other platforms make it so much easier that more and more people are getting Android phones because of that. A lot of people like to use their phone as a phone, but they also use it as their music solution. I know I do. I have tons of music on my phone now, as opposed to a separate piece of like the Nanos used to be with Apple, and or the iPads, that kind of thing. You don't have to have that separate thing anymore. And
Right.
I just didn't get Apple stuff because it was clunky. So I'm wondering what that solution is going to be for them. I do have iTunes still. I'm not going to say that I don't, still have it in there to help manage some of the music. But, so many different things and so many different capabilities on the Android side, it makes it very, very hard to keep the Apple stuff.
I haven't looked at my list in years, literally. Yeah. I have not. And in fact, I could not wait to rest my iTunes collect. I used to use iTunes exclusively for my music because that's all there was. But I always thought that Apple missed a huge opportunity there because, yes, I mean, at first, when Steve Jobs announced the iPod, iTunes Music was only for the iPod, and then they opened it up to Windows, to Windows devices, which was, they had the lion's share of the market at that time and still does in terms of pure ownership of personal computers. But the writing of the design of iTunes for Windows has always been awful. Always. It's never been good. And why they wouldn't make that a priority, since actually there were more users using iTunes for Windows than iTunes on Apple devices, why they wouldn't make a seamless experience a priority there, I'll never understand. Right. But I know when Google came out with its music solution, and even Amazon, I mean, Amazon actually opened the door when they provided Amazon Music, because without all the restrictions that you get with iTunes, you could just have a place to collect your music. Bam, there it is. And now you didn't have, I mean, what Amazon didn't bring to the table was this streaming part, or, just sort of like the instantaneous recall and streaming of music while you're on the go. But if you wanted some place to just put all of your music, and they were very generous with their memory requirements. So they opened the door, and I think Google opened it up even wider when they announced Google All Access Music. Was that 2 years ago, I think? And I subscribed to it then because the price was $7.99. It has since gone up to $9.99 per month. I pay $7.99. I'm so glad that I signed up when I did, and I've been because it's just a steal at $7.99 to be able to get any, I won't say anything that I want. I mean, apparently I can't get Adele, but or Prince, but in terms of other stuff, I mean, I remember just like hearing music in a store, and I was wondering, gee, I wonder who that is. So I call up SoundHound, I find out who that artist is, and then I just put the song in my library. Done. Bam, out the door. I have the music. And I pay $7.99 a month for any music that I want. And I'm sorry, the Apple Music experience is not quite like that. It just isn't. And not only can I get any new music I want, but Google All Access also holds all my library. I wrested it from iTunes, and now it's in Google Music, so I have no need to go to iTunes, and I can play it through my home stereo system whenever I want to. I can play it through headphones. I can play it whenever I want, and it's much more satisfying than it was when it was just part of iTunes. So I think they definitely have some work there. They have a lot of work to do. I thought the Apple Music offering that was announced pretty much last year, I thought that was relatively anemic compared to what was already there. And I don't think Apple doesn't really talk about this that much, but I don't think it's enjoying the growth that certainly Spotify is. I think Pandora's having some real issues. I think subscription music services in general are having issues unless you're Google and Amazon, because even if you're losing money, guess what? You can afford to lose money because, Google is the most valuable company in the world. So, if All Access is losing money, that's not going to cause them a lot of problems. But Spotify is also in somewhat of a precarious position too for the same reason, because their business model is built on subscriptions. They don't have this other stuff the way that Google and Amazon do, and Apple for that matter. But Apple needs to step up their game.
Well, we're getting close to our time here, so let me ask you another question. With the WWDC occurring this coming week, what are you looking for as far as what you think one of the best developments, ideas you think is going to actually come out of this conference that you think is going to change the game for Apple?
I want to hear what Apple has to say about the next big thing, which relates to virtual reality and artificial intelligence. Where are they in that? And when I mention that, I'm talking about even with regard and also with regard to like smart things like cars. You can have Apple Music in cars, but Google's working on a self-driving car. Supposedly Apple's been working on a self-driving car, but could just be vaporware. I don't know. Who knows what they're doing with regard to that. But where are they in terms of creating this intelligence factor in these, either the home or the car, which, those are like the two big things that we care about the most, and where, artificial intelligence can really enhance how we exist in those particular arenas, car and home. So what do they have to say about that? And I will also say that Apple's never been, Google's much farther ahead of the game with regard to the games arena than Apple is. Microsoft is much farther ahead in the games arena. Microsoft has the Xbox and Sony has PlayStation. Apple doesn't have anything in games, but virtual reality is going to be a huge enhancement to what we call gaming. Mm-hmm. It will literally, quote unquote, change the game. Not to put too fine a point on it. Is Apple going to play? Is Apple going to step into the arena? I'll be interested to see. I don't know whether they are or not. They don't have a history of being part of that, but I think the use of virtual reality or augmented reality, and I keep saying artificial reality, I meant augmented reality. The use of either virtual reality or augmented reality could be so game changing, and how they're used in games could lead the way to how they're used in other applications. If Apple's not a part of that, that's going to be another area that could severely limit their future growth. And they have to look for new areas to grow in because they've already cracked phones.
Yeah, my wife and I recently went and bought a new phone, Samsung phone recently, the Edge. And
the 7 Edge?
I don't know if she got 6 or 7, but when we were in the showroom, they were showing us virtual reality goggles that you put on to do different things with the Android ideology. And so I'm thinking to myself, just like you're mentioning that now, they're already not just looking into it, they've implemented it, and you can actually buy it. And again, this had nothing, iPhone had nothing in the showroom that was even close.
Right.
So I've actually seen that already adversely affect their products right now, before the meeting. So that would be interesting to see if they're going to go that direction.
HTC is supposed, if they haven't come out with the Vive already, they're coming out with the Vive, with their virtual reality platform. And I think it'll be interesting to see whether they play or not. And here's another area where I think it'll be interesting to see what happens with regard to wearables. Because in my opinion, Apple Apple has the Apple Watch,
Mm-hmm.
and it's gorgeous. It looks, it's extremely expensive, and I'm underwhelmed. Underwhelmed. Okay. I don't care how expensive it is. It doesn't do enough for what it's costing. I mean, maybe it deserves to cost whatever it costs because of the materials from which it's made. But in terms of what it can do, I don't want like 3 million circles, 3 million tiny circles in a inside of a bigger circle on my arm, and for me to try to find that dot to pick so that I can get the weather or I don't want that. That's a crazy interface to me. And from a smartwatch, from like a fitness standpoint, it doesn't do nearly as much as my Microsoft Band does. And my Microsoft Band is a fraction of the cost of Apple Watch. So what are they going to do with Apple Watch? I mean, wearables is another. It's that category that's like, the competition's going to ramp up, but fast. I mean, Microsoft is playing Android Wear, actually began the whole game, and Apple, to me, it's just. I mean, it might be the cool thing to have, I guess, but I don't understand the coolness factor. I think the interface is ugly. And I don't think it does enough outside of just notifying me about stuff that's on my phone. It doesn't do enough.
I have one last real quick question, because again, our time is limited. So you think Apple's going to have a hard time catching up? I mean, they're playing catch up right now. Is that going to be just a major hamper to their future growth, as you were alluding to the future growth before?
I think they do have to play catch up. That and that's just my assessment. I've never heard them say that, and they've been very cagey about how much they've sold in the way of Apple Watches, and and it's considered a luxury item, but I think that's part of the problem, because in the smartwatch / fitness or tracker arena, you don't just want your item to be luxury, because if it's luxury, that means you don't need it.
Mm-hmm. You
want people to need your item. Yeah, it needs to be a part of your life, and it needs to be like a must-have, not a okay, I reached 112 today, so for my 112th birthday, I'm going to get an Apple Watch. No, it needs to be, I need it right now. Need, not want.
Present a need where there is no need, but, the pure essence of business. But at the same time, you want to have the functionality and the purpose that your end user wants to be able to facilitate. And if you don't do that, then where are you? I see that these other platforms are doing that, and it just makes sense to me. But again, I'm just a general consumer, but people keep forgetting that the general consumer is the one that you're trying to convince. The general consumer is the one that you want to buy your products. And if you're not doing the things that are marketing your product properly, and or the functionality of your product is not going to help the end user, they'll go elsewhere. And you've got to be able to not just try to put something out there, but truly compete with the products and services that your competitors are seemingly easily getting out there faster and building that rapport with the end user.
Right.
Yeah, that's crazy. Well, Karen, I really appreciate you coming on our first episode of Let's Talk, etc., and giving us as much information as you have about our new tech essence with regard to our phones and the developers conferences, both on the Google side and on the Apple side. So thanks again for joining us. We really, really appreciate that.
Oh, well, thanks for having me, Greg.
It was my pleasure. So we're going to try to, here on Let's Talk, etc., bring you different interviews and conversations with people in different facets so that we can talk about everything that's going on in the world. And we just appreciate you, Karen, for talking a little tech with us.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm honored to be the inaugural guest on this platform. It's been fun.
Well, thanks again, everybody, for hanging out with us here at Let's Talk, etc. And we'll be back with more at a later date. Thanks again. Take care, everybody.
Night.